So, I mean, you've at the FT helped grow global revenues to over £1 million, right?
Yeah. Nobody ever believes me when I tell them this, but in the beginning of my career, I was quite reserved, would like go to speak in a meeting and my knees would like be buckling underneath. Setting goals and things like that. It's really important not to get like tunnel vision. You like have to like recreate your whole routine, which I think also poses a good opportunity to kind of like recreate yourself.
Welcome to Kasa Connect. Together we're exploring the journeys of entrepreneurs, creatives and change makers shaping the future. From working in insurance in Australia to coming to the UK and accelerating growth at the Financial Times, Jess is not only a corporate girly, but author of the book Play the Game, as well as a community leader of the community Embrace Her, empowering women to accelerate in their career. Hi Jess, and welcome to Kasa Connect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Honestly, when we met and you gave a talk at Kasa at the product launch, I was so inspired and I wanted to know more about your journey. You not only work at the Financial Times, but you've now written your own book called Play the Game, and you have a fabulous community called Embrace Her. I mean, the book is one of your most recent accomplishments. So I want to dive into that first.
Yes.
You know, tell us about Play the Game. I'm just going to grab it right now. Tell us about Play the Game, you know, your career, your rules, and what inspired you to write this.
Amazing. So, let's dive straight in. So I think with Play the Game, for me, it was actually a journey of self-reflection that kind of led to a whole bunch of outputs that I was like, if this has been helpful for me, how can I get it out to other women who may be experiencing similar things? I think when I first moved to England nearly 3 years ago now, I had this really great opportunity to take a bit of a breather from my career.
Where were you before?
Before that, I was in Australia in an insurance company. So big change moving to England, especially because I was on a small coastal town. So big change, but with a lot of opportunity, which is amazing. But I think for me, having that period where I was able to just take some time for myself, I was in between jobs because when we moved here, we didn't get jobs first. We were like, we'll just wing it and hope for the best. But that time I reflected and I was like, what worked really well in my career? I spent 7 years in my previous organization. So there was a lot that I really could take time to digest, because I think sometimes when you're just in the thick of it, you just go from thing to thing and you don't really take time to reflect. So off the back of that, I then started to map out, okay, when I start at this new company, whatever that may be, and I start my next chapter of my career in England, what are some of the key things that I want to make sure that I implement or stop doing or start doing? Then I was like, I feel like other people would like really benefit from these lessons. And the more I reflected, the more I realized that these were lessons that were not necessarily just collected in a textbook or something like that you get when you start your career. They were actually what I'd experienced through trial and error, and then experience learnings that I'd kind of collected along the way. And so that's things like, you know, handling rejection and all of these different topics that are definitely available to you, but you kind of have to go hunting for them. And so I started Embrace Her and was like, I'm just going to document things. I started posting about my lessons and thoughts, and then that started to gain some traction. And then I was reflecting even more on like how I like to digest things, and I realized that a social media post can only go so far, and like, I don't know, I'm the worst at like, oh my God, I'm going to save that and I'm going to look at it later, and then I never pick it back up.
And there's an overload of information online, right?
There's
so much online that it just makes sense to take it offline sometimes.
Exactly. And then I was trying to think about how can I transform this information and give it to other people in a way that's affordable, it's timely. I didn't really want to do a course. I just felt like that wasn't really the vibe that I was going for. And then with my own learning style, like reading a book is fine, but I think sometimes I might like remember one concept and then the rest is like gone until I remind myself of it. So with Play the Game, I tried to make it extremely practical. and slice up the 20 lessons so that you should be able to do it just with yourself, the book, a pen, and 30 minutes of time. And then you can read the lesson, complete the activity or the action, and then work through the key takeaways and things like that.
I want to get down to kind of some of the lessons and, you know, if you can give us like a little bit of an intro to some of them and what shaped that lesson for you. What's the story behind it?
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it. So one I think that was quite pivotal in my career was the lesson on handling rejection gracefully. So that lesson stemmed off the fact that when I was quite early in my career, maybe like 3-4 years in, I really wanted this job. I was obsessed and I was laser focused. I was like, I need this job. This job is meant for me. I have to get it. And I applied for it 3 times before I got it. So 3 times I got rejected. And the reason why this one stood out to me is because when I've told that to other people, they're like, why would you try again after being rejected twice? And I'm like, well, I feel like just because someone says no, it doesn't mean like never. It means like
not right now.
Not right now. Exactly. And so I think each time I actually was faced with a rejection, I was able to then take that feedback and apply it in a new way and then grow. And I think that's what I became like quite obsessed with, is like growing and like improving and challenging myself to be better each day. And so over that journey, even though at the time, like I'm definitely not going to lie, by the 3rd time I was like, are you joking me? Like what the heck can I actually do? And I was like, the 3rd one definitely tested me. And I think that feeds into another lesson around like resilience. But like, it's not to say that things aren't hard and they don't hurt and they feel painful, but it's then how do you pick yourself back up and like work through those things and not let it like derail you from what you actually want to achieve. And then by the 4th time I did get it, which was great.
What was it?
It was an operations manager role. So then I was responsible for a national outbound sales team in the call center. So it was 45 staff, which I was, I think 24 at the time, which kind of a big job.
Oh, wow. That's young to be managing such a large team. Yeah.
So it's so ironic because that job that I was so laser focused on for years ended up not being at all like what I wanted. But I think actually that's why there's like so much benefit in just like trial and error and just like experiencing things. And I'm glad that like I didn't give up, because otherwise I feel like I would have always been like, well, what if? Like what if I did go down that route? And now I know I tried it. I did it for nearly 3 years. Or like 2.5, but I realized it wasn't for me. And at least then I can kind of like tick that off and go, well, I gave it a crack. Turns out it wasn't what I imagined in my head. So
sometimes we think we know what we want and we do everything to try and get it. And then once we do, we're like,
I know.
This is not it.
It's actually, that actually taught me so much about when you're setting goals and things like that. It's really important not to get like tunnel vision, because then actually you can lose sight of other opportunities that maybe don't present themselves in the way that you imagine it to in your mind. So then you kind of miss those opportunities because you're so laser focused on this specific image that you have in your head. And I think ever since that, I've always tried to keep more of an open mind and say, okay, well, like if an opportunity comes up, however it may look, even if I think, oh, I really want this thing over here, I'm always going to take the time to really understand it and think about it in a more broader context, which I think has been like really beneficial for my growth.
And I think the other thing is that we really evolve over time on what we want, because I remember like I received an opportunity to work at this startup, and that would have been my dream opportunity in my final year of uni when I was applying for jobs. But now that I have this, I'm just like, I actually don't want. It was hard for me to say no because I had fantasized that opportunity at one point in time. But now that I have this, I'm like, this is now my new dream. So we do it as individuals as well, evolve, 100%. And our goals evolve, and our personal development evolves and changes us.
And I bet as well, like you would have, like if you went back like 5 years, you would have never imagined this is like what you would have had, or like how you would have worked on things and stuff like that. And it's like, you just have to be willing to kind of take that all organic opportunity when it shows itself.
So what's your favorite chapter in the book? Would it be this one?
So I love them all, obviously.
Of course.
But I actually think my favorite one is in the introduction. I actually walk through the DARE method, which is actually something that I've created. And I think that's why
the DARE method. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I know. And it's an acronym, and it stands for discipline, accountability, responsibility, and efficiency. And I think that really kind of like wraps up who I am as a person. And I love that because I think it frames every single lesson in the book. And I think the rest of the lessons are definitely like an accumulation of things that I've learned over time. So I reference things like Simon Sinek's Start With Why, which was really pivotal in the beginning of my career. So it's a collection of things that I've learned, whereas the DARE method is something that I've created. So I feel like I'm going to have a little bit more favoritism, maybe.
I love it. How come you chose chess pieces on the front cover? I mean, I love it, but I want to know why.
Do you know what is so funny? I've actually had people ask me if it's a chess book. I'm like, but the reason why I chose chess pieces, and that's the queen on the front, which is kind of symbolic, I suppose. But the reason I chose play the game and chess pieces is because I think in your career it's really important to be strategic and to not shy away from being strategic. I think there's nothing wrong with being strategic and to actually plan and think about and consider like where you want to go and how you want to get there and what does that mean and what relationships do you need to do that and all of those types of things. So I think it's about really leaning into the fact that unless you have a strategy and you're just like winging it, it's probably going to be a lot more challenging for you because you don't really have any type of plan. Even if you don't know all of the steps, but you kind of need to figure out like, well, what direction am I at least going in? So that's why.
I completely agree. And now you're working at the Financial Times, and I see from your LinkedIn, you're absolutely killing it. So tell us how you kind of landed that job and how you're finding it.
Yeah. So when I first moved to England, I was quite... Stubborn's not the right word, but I was quite particular in the fact that I really wanted to take these learnings and I wanted to step into a role that was fulfilling for me. And because my background in Australia was all or heavily sales dominated, but I didn't want to be on the front line anymore. I wanted to be more strategic in the back end and kind of have the opportunity to pull some of the levers, develop programs and all of that kind of stuff. So when the sales program manager role came up, I was like, this was written for me because it really balanced the practical side of selling, but then also the back end around like, what are the best practices? What strategic direction should we take as a business to meet our targets and things like that? So I went through a period where I was applying for a lot of roles and then when this one came up, I kind of just locked in on it and was like, probably putting all my eggs in one basket, but I was like, I feel like this is meant to be. And I'm massive on like intuition and like going with my gut. So I was like, I'm just going to lock in. And then thankfully I did get it. So I started there at the end of March in 2023, which interestingly was about 3 weeks after I started Embrace Her. So it was kind of like a lot of things like all happening at once, but it was a good accountability piece because I was like, well, I've just done all of this reflection. Now this is my opportunity to apply what I'm learning in my new role. So this year I was promoted into a senior commercial enablement manager. So we moved into more of like a centralized team operationally, working across sales, customer success and marketing, and really enabling those teams with the ultimate goal of generating revenue or retaining revenue. And my space specifically focuses on 2 core pillars. So the long-term programs that are going to future-proof performance, and then also the short-term tactical interventions that we need to constantly be working on so that we're not in a position where we're reacting to things when performance shakes a little bit and things like that. So I'm absolutely loving it there. I think it's a phenomenal company. It's so funny as well because when I first told my family, I was like, I've got a job at the Financial Times. And my dad was like, the newspaper? What? You work in insurance? And I was like, no, but it's like, it's not a newspaper, like just the newspaper, Dad. Like it's digital now and all this stuff. He was like, oh, okay.
No, it's a great company to be working
I know.
for.
And then I was so nervous because I was like, oh God, I've just come from sales background, insurance, like financial services, male dominated, egos. I was like, oh God. And my perception, honestly, was like, white old men are going to work at the Financial Times. That's what I thought. And I got there and I was like, I've actually never been more wrong about anything in my entire life. It's so diverse, and they just have such good programs, flexibility. It's a really caring culture.
I absolutely love that because, I mean, you wouldn't be able to write this book and, you know, grow your community, embrace her if you didn't have a company like that.
Exactly. And they've been so supportive, which was just like almost like a foreign feeling to me, because I was kind of like, oh gosh, what are they going to think? Are they going to be really strict? So that's been just absolutely phenomenal, and they've always supported my development. And I think it actually aligns really well with the like extracurricular I do there. So I'm a co-chair of FT Women, which is our employee resource group. And we have a whole bunch of those focusing on different topics that really need support and advocacy in the business. So I think there's great alignment, and they really see that, and they are really supportive of that.
So you must have spoken to a lot of women in your community, as well as gotten a lot of feedback for your book. What is the primary thing that women are grateful for your support for, that they're struggling with?
I think, so there's a few things. So like if we zoom right out and go high level, I think they appreciate the practicalness of it. Because I think so often theory can just feel like you have to try to decode something to know like what do I do next. And I think a strength that I bring to my community is that I tangibly give you like, what do you now do with this information, which I think is really key.
What are they struggling with? Like,
I think some of the main things usually is around like boundaries, and especially like more recently that feeling of like burnout would definitely be like a top one. And then imposter syndrome is a big one. And then finally around like kind of not necessarily personal branding per se, but more in the context of like feeling confident to kind of own the room and like being in male dominated fields. Like how do you stand up as a woman without being challenged as difficult? Like how can you be really assertive without having someone think you're emotional and things like that?
How did you learn that? Sorry to cut you off. But
No.
So I want to know your story behind how you got to this level. Because I mean, when you walked in the room, I felt that level of confidence from you, which I admire, but in a very kind of humble way as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the reason why I continue to have humility is because I've lacked confidence in the past. So nobody ever believes me when I tell them this, but in the beginning of my career, I was quite reserved, very introverted, very observant, but like I'm not speaking up. I would like go to speak in a meeting and my knees would like be buckling underneath me. I'm like trying to just stand up, like sweating. And I actually just think that over time, I was kind of somewhat relentless internally around getting over it and kind of getting over myself, which sounds like so hard. But I think just realizing that like actually it's not that deep and no one really cares about like what you're doing or saying as much as you think you are, like they are, was kind of a stepping stone in that journey. But it was kind of one of those things where I had to consistently work at it, like week in, week out, over an extended period of time. It's so interesting because sometimes people just think like you wake up one day and you're magically confident. But I think actually confidence comes from doing more than like thinking, planning. Like the more you do think, it's kind of like when you learn to drive a car, the first time you do it, you're like really nervous, you're not confident. And then after like 3 years, you'll like drive home and not remember the drive that you've done because you're just like in autopilot, like you've done it that many times. I feel like confidence in different areas is the exact same thing. Because,
completely agree.
Yeah. And so I think just by doing that consistently. Another thing that I definitely have to like call out was massive for me was when I moved, I know I've said I've moved to England like 100 times, but when I'd moved here, I'd worked at my previous organization for nearly 7 years. And when I started there, I was like 20 or 21. So I'd basically grown up in this organization. And I think when you go from like 20 to 27, you're such a different woman, but you're surrounded by people who see you as a 21-year-old because they've watched you on this journey and they don't really let go of things that you're trying to like grow from or things like that. Not that there's like any negative things, but they just have this viewpoint of like, I remember when you first started, just like a little 21-year-old, and you're like, okay, well, I'm not that anymore. And I think when I moved here, it was like almost liberating to then just kind of release that and then have people meet me where I'm at now. And you could kind of like, or I kind of could just like
reinvent yourself.
Yeah, reinvent myself. Yeah. And people just saw me for who I am now and didn't tie me to like a 20-year-old that they first met kind of thing, which was huge for my confidence to just like put myself in a different environment.
What's the hardest thing about moving though? Because it's obviously like super out of comfort zone. You're a completely new city, like you don't know anyone, new career, everything.
Honestly, I literally said to one of my best friends, I was like, I feel like I'm being skull dragged through growth right now because I have no other option but to keep going through it. And I'm kind of stubborn where it was like, I refuse to move back home because this doesn't work. Like I will make this work. And I think for us, it was, so I moved here with my partner, which I know some people move to the other side of the world just on their own, which I think is like if I didn't have my partner, I think that would have been so much more tough. Like he was such a supporter. But also I think because we didn't plan anything at all, like we just had some accommodation.
I love that. I'm all for going with the flow.
Do you know what though? I'm not. Like, so it was like low-key traumatizing. I was like, my partner was like, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'm like, we need a plan. Like, what is happening? So we were pretty lucky though. Like when we moved here, we just stayed in a hotel for like 4 weeks. Like that will be enough for us to get somewhere to live, find jobs, etc. He got a job straight away and started working like a week later. And then I didn't work for like 3 months because I was being quite particular. But I think the biggest lesson I took away from that was like, I'm actually so capable of doing hard things. And I think that also fueled the confidence because when you pick up your life and moved like to the other side of the world, it's not just the big things like finding a job and like rent. It's like making new friends in your late 20s. It's like, where do I get my favorite coffee from now? What gym am I going to go to? Like, where am I going to go for my morning walks and things like that? So you like have to like recreate your whole routine, which I think also poses a good opportunity to kind of like recreate yourself.
So, I mean, you've at the FT helped grow global revenues to over £1 million, right? Yeah. How was your experience of doing that and being a leader in the company? Yeah. So that £1 million was the first year of a retention program that we launched, which was really exciting to see. And I think has been a big shift in the company. I think when it comes to my role at the FT, it was just really the perfect blend of things that I enjoy doing. Like I've always loved sales. I think sales sometimes gets a bad rap, where I really just believe it's about truly understanding your customers' needs and then delivering that to them so that they can maximize the value that they get from that. And so having an extensive background in sales and then also a real knack, I guess, for discipline, accountability, organization, all of that kind of stuff, that kind of swayed me more into the project side of things. And then being able to blend those together in enablement has just been a game changer for my fulfillment side of things, like how I enjoy my role. Yeah. I've always been someone who likes solving complex business problems, which is quite funny actually, because earlier in my career, I used to always be like, I want to be challenged, challenge me, I want to be challenged. And then it was like, something I didn't like. And I was like, no, I don't want to be challenged like that. And my boss was like, you can't pick and choose your challenges. Like, that's not how the world works. So I was like, fair. And I've always remembered that kind of thing. That's so funny. Do you think it takes a certain characteristic in a person to lead and to also be a good follower? Mm-hmm. Or do you think, people naturally can be both?
I think there's definitely characteristics that you want to see in a leader for sure. I think something that I've always said is like, I care more about who I work for than who I work alongside or who works for me, and that's not in a negative way at all. I just think that your leader will kind of make or break your experience in your role, your trajectory, how you feel supported. And I think I've never, like, people don't leave companies, they leave bad managers. And I think it's just such a critical component to make sure that people who are leading in your businesses are people who have those skills and capabilities to support the people that they're responsible for. I think where I see it go wrong quite often is promoting high performers who lack the capabilities to lead people, because just because someone is really good at performing as an individual does not mean that they have the skills and capabilities to lead a team, to support them, to develop them.
I mean, obviously there's going to be lots of qualities, but what's one of the qualities that makes a good leader?
Doing what you said you would do.
Okay.
I think, like, you have to, like, honestly, so many leaders I see, like, they skip a one-to-one, reschedule things, they don't show up for their team. There's, like, when I first got into leadership, there was this concept that one of my old previous, like, bosses showed me, and it was around, like, servant leadership and recognizing that, like, you're there to serve your team and to make sure that they can do what they need to do in their role. And so I think by following through and, like, doing the things that you said you would do and showing up for your team is how you build a high performance culture. I think the second thing with that is having very clear standards and expectations. And that's not to be negative or a micromanager. It's just that you create a space that has clarity, and people want to feel like when they come to work, they know what they need to do and they can do it. And there's clear expectations. I think when you're, like, a bit all over the shop, you're not holding people accountable, then actually that's quite detrimental to their experience and their growth in the company. I remember one of the first things so I first got promoted into a leadership role at 21, which was absolutely, I almost swore, but, like, it was terrifying. And my boss at the time, because I was like, I can't tell these people what to do. I'm 21. Like, what are you joking? Like, what the heck? And then he was like to me, okay, I want you to imagine that you've paid money for a personal trainer, and over 12 weeks, you have some very specific goals in mind that you want to achieve. And that's why you've got this personal trainer. And then if in your sessions, you're like, oh, I'm really tired today, I don't want to do any more reps. And they go, oh, okay, don't worry about it. All good. Like, try again tomorrow. By the end of your 12 weeks, you've just, like, spent all this time, and, like, yes, in the session, you're like, oh, what a relief. I can go home now and, like, relax. And you felt good at that moment. But by the end of it, you've not hit your goals, and you're not angry at yourself. You're angry at them because they didn't say, no, hang on a second. You need to push yourself. That's the whole point of having the PT. Whereas on the reverse of it, if they were like, no, we've got these goals. This is exactly why I'm here to support you. This is what we said we would do. And then they push you in that moment, you might go home and be like, oh gosh, that was so annoying today. Like, I really didn't want to do that. But then by the end of it, once you hit your goal, you'll be grateful for the experience and the accountability.
Such a great analogy.
And so, like, I just think, like, when he heard that, I was like, okay, that's changed my life. But it's always about, like, tapping back into that servant leader thing. It's like, it's about them though. Like, what are their goals and how do you intrinsically or extrinsically motivate them, connected to what is important to them, not like, I'm sorry, but I don't think anybody is, like, driven by increasing shareholder value. Like, that's no one is like, that's why I'm getting up in the morning. So, like, you need to really understand your people that you're leading, and tap into that and support them in achieving their goals, so that then they are more motivated to show up at work.
You're obviously a fabulous leader. And I mean, you're not only leading a team, but you also have a community you're leading, and you've written a book, which you're trying to promote and sell. I can imagine that you're doing so much at once, right? So have you ever faced burnout or?
Yes, so I have. So So back in I think it was 2021.
That's like, are you this machine that none of us
never sleeps? Like, no, definitely not. So my boss actually used to kind of pull me up a lot, because she was like, you're like on a football pitch where you're like, give me the ball, coach, give me the ball, coach. Like, you just want everything and you say yes to everything. And she's like, but that's not, like, helpful for you. And there's a lot of power in, like, resting. And I always struggled with like rest guilt. And I don't know, maybe it's like eldest daughter vibes or something like that. I just feel like I have a greater purpose in life, and I feel anytime I'm not like doing something, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my potential, which are like really, they're very critical thoughts that I've had to work very hard on. And so all of this kind of led, at this point in time, I didn't have any tools around how do I manage my boundaries, which is why boundaries have become so important and is a key lesson in my book. But at this point in time, I had no boundaries. And I got to the point where I started having panic attacks, and I like the thought of, like, I just had so many things to do. I would get like paralyzation through procrastination of just like, I don't even know where to begin because I have like 8 million things I need to deliver or something like that. And so it wasn't until I started having panic attacks, and then it was debilitating, that I realized I had to make a serious change. And I think it's always so unfortunate that you have to push yourself to such an extreme level to then make a real change, which is why I'm always like so encouraging of other people to like, don't let it get that bad where you are forced to change, like proactively prevent these things. So that was a really big moment for me. And ever since then, I think I went through quite a big mindset shift around like work-life balance versus work-life integration. And I think even that reframing for me was like a weight off my shoulders, because I felt this kind of pressure of like, well, I have to, like, rest for me has to be like meditating in a bath with a face mask on or something. Like, but I'm like, actually like irks me. And like, I feel like my blood pressure rises. And so actually what I realized is part of my burnout prevention strategy is actually focused on what are the things that really calm me down and make me feel good and I'm in a flow. And so that's things like going for my morning walk.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see on social media, you know, your non-negotiable is your morning walk, would you say?
Do you know what? I feel like I'm like, I have to go every single morning now. Like,
I love watching it. It's motivational for me. Like, I see you, like, you know, get out of bed in the parks, doing your morning walk, and I'm like, let's go.
Do you know what? The other day, I was like, usually if it's like raining and stuff like that, so I have like, from the DARE method, I have like, okay, how am I objection handling myself ahead of time? So if it's raining, I'll go to the gym and stuff like that. The other morning, we've had so much rain. Yeah. I was like, do you know what? I think it might be dry. I'm going to go for it this morning instead of going to the gym. I got like 10 minutes into the water and it was like torrential downpour, but I was too like into it. So I was like, I'm just going to have to go. And then I just got home and I was like this drowned rat. And I was like, if this is not commitment, like I don't know what is. I was like, pat on the back for today. You can accomplish anything.
No, I love that. It's so important to, you know, look after yourself, because you can't achieve what you want to if you're not.
I just always think as well, like, so I am someone who I work 9 till 5 and I work 9 till 5. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing overtime because I think it's not that I'm not doing overtime. Yeah. Like, if something really needed to be done, like, of course I have flexibility. Like, I'm not rigid in my approach. However, I'm very much of the belief that when I finish at 5, I need that time to kind of decompress, do things for me so that I can show up better the next day. Yeah. I think if I work late, like in my previous company, there was nights where I would work until like 10 p.m. at night because I was so like, maybe like imposter syndrome as a leader, but I had so much self-doubt that I couldn't bear to leave my team to just operate on their own. And so I did all of my admin after work and would work until like 10 p.m. at night, do like audits and things like that, just so that I could be 100% available for my team during the day, which is like, I reckon that's the least amount of boundaries a person could ever have. And so to go on that journey and, you know, put trust in others and support them in the right way, and then make sure that you are there for yourself as well, so that you can show up as your best self, I think is so key.
Yeah. So, you know, what's unique to this podcast is that it's filmed in a cafe. Mm-hmm. So what's your go-to drink on a coffee break?
Oh, okay. My partner always pays me out with my coffee order. But I get oat latte with sugar-free vanilla.
Okay, nice. Amazing. You know what? I have sugar-free vanilla and it's surprisingly popular nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like people are growing more health conscious, which I love.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Another thing unique to this podcast is, it's Kasa Connect. It is all about connection. So we want you and your audience and listeners to really connect. So what's one thing you'd like from them? And how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, one thing I'd like from them. I think one thing I would like from my community is to take time to believe in themselves. I think lean into your authenticity and show up as your best self, as you are. I think that's all I can ask of you always. I think to get in touch, Instagram, of course, and also LinkedIn. Happy to have more chats there. Also DM me. I'm always like in the DMs with the girls messaging me, like talking about their specific challenges. So if you've got something going on, reach out. Definitely keen to have a chat.
I know social media is just very overwhelming now, but I love when you reach out to someone and they actually respond, even though they have a really large community, large followers, and they must be busy, but it really means a lot when you get that response.
Yeah. I think it's so important about the connection as well. Like, the whole part of this is like I wanted to create connection and really to tap in and understand like what other women are experiencing. And so I think my DMs are like my favorite place to hang out, and I always try to carve out time, like even just 15 minutes each day, to just like work through and like reply to things and just have those conversations, because I think they're really important.
For sure. So we also like to leave our listeners with some food for thought. So what's the best piece of advice you regret not taking? We always ask this question, but I know you said you actually don't have regrets on your journey.
Yeah.
So let's do, what's a piece of advice you'd like to leave everyone with?
My number one favorite thing, which is consistently good beats occasionally great. I think that's been very pivotal in my journey, because I think sometimes we feel like we have to do the thing perfectly, and if it's not perfect, then we're not going to do it. So like if I wake up and I don't feel like going for a walk, I think old me would be like, oh, I can't be bothered, like I'm just not going to go, I'll start again on Monday or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think even just going for like 10 minutes then moves you closer. So it's like that action. And so I think, consistently good beats occasionally great.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Jess, for coming on here.